Welcome to Realliance Radio, the podcast that explores how regenerative paradigms, principles, and practices are being brought to life in communities all around the world. In this season, we're moving from principles toward practice, exploring regeneration in action. In this season, we're shining a light on how Realliance members are working with their communities to bring regenerative thinking into everyday life. And today's episode introduces, drum roll, a new member to our podcasting team. I can hear the audience gasp with excitement, and explores how individual regenerative projects can connect to a bigger system of thinking and design. So I am really thrilled to introduce a new co-host joining me this session. Maybe if you've listened to Realliance Radio before, you'll know me, James Atherton, and I cannot wait to introduce to you an environmentalist, an activist, and radio host, Batata Boris-Kaloff. Welcome.
Right. Thank you, James. It's a delight to join you for this very great program, to co-host with you. I'm super excited, meeting different experts who are working with Realliance to save our Earth. And I'll be hosting them alongside you. And I'm so looking forward to the various episodes that will be coming. This is a great platform for me. Thank you so much for the warm introduction, by the way.
Boris, we're so lucky and honored to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. And I really think your experience, you are a storyteller and the station manager of CBS Radio, Bouye. Is that
Right.
correct?
You're correct, Boya.
Boya, nice. And you focus on environmental and humanitarian issues already. So I think your experience is going to be so rich for this podcast series. And I also think, you're an environmentalist, but you're also on a regenerative learning journey yourself. So can I ask you, what are you excited to learn about this season as you talk to Realliance members?
That's right, James. I know I've been around environmental beats for a couple of years now, especially, in fact, ever since I started my journalism career. I picked on environmental storytelling as one of my niches, my cool areas, before delving into humanitarian. In fact, as a matter of fact, I know humanitarian and environmental stories, they go in kind of interwoven nature, because if a environment is not being catered for, there are negative impacts that leads to humanitarian issues. For instance, floods, droughts, landslide, as the case which I've covered, they lead to humanitarian catastrophes. So the two work in close collaboration. So, but for Realliance, I got to hear new terminology specifically for this platform, Realliance, especially about patterns, design, working with community before implementing. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from the various stakeholders on how they are implementing these various processes for regeneration, especially when it comes to the design, not just jumping into implementing, because I've covered a couple of humanitarian stories. And you just see maybe actors coming to a community and just start implementing a project. Sometimes the community members don't align with some of their actions. For example, I'll take a short story in Cameroon where we're told that one organization went to a community and decided to provide them borehole without seeking their permission, to ask them if they actually need borehole for their community. And the community members, they were not using the borehole after all, because they felt comfortable going to the stream to carry water. And so that disalignment, because the organization did not properly integrate the knowledge and the consent of the community into their project. So that was a big failure, because resources were already poured in. So that was just an example of how I've been seeing organizations not properly working with community. So here I'm going to be looking forward to learning how to work with community to come up with beautiful, sustainable, and impactful projects.
Thanks, Boris. I'm sure you're going to get some fantastic inspiration from this season, from speaking with our members. I can't wait to hear your conversations with them. And even today, we're joined by two of our wonderful other members of the Realigns team who we're going to introduce in a moment. And I think we can hear a bit today about regenerative design thinking as you're explaining. And I think that really brings us to the theme of not only this episode, but this season. What connects all these different regenerative actions that we'll explore this season, all the way from mushroom growing to things like trauma healing? What connects them and what brings them all together? So, Boris, would you like to do the honors of introducing our two wonderful guests for this episode?
Right. That's right, Roland. That's right. Thank you. Oh, I'm already jumping into Roland. I don't know why Roland came first. James. Okay. Thank you. So today we have Juliet Millican, an educationist with years of experience in international development and peace building, and a Realliance coordinator. We also have Roland Ansiima, a Realliance correspondent and founder of FOLONA, working on ecological learning and community education from the Nakivale Refugee Settlement in Uganda. Welcome, Juliet and Roland, to this episode. So I'm so delighted to hear from both of you. Juliet, we hear about regeneration and its many applications, but we often talk about process and design rather than simply taking immediate action. Why do we talk about processes so much in regeneration? Why not just get it done and we move?
Hey, Boris, lovely to see you today, and thank you for that kind introduction. Yes, great question. It's a question that often is asked in humanitarian work. People say, come on, these are emergencies. Why are you talking about design? Can't we just jump in and do? And I want to try and answer that question in relation to two things. One is that the unexpected is no longer unexpected. We can expect emergencies. We know emergencies will come. And two, that emergencies and crises are no longer short term. So we need to prepare for them, and we need to prepare for them being there for the longer term. For too long now, emergency responders has done things for people. And you gave the example in your introduction about the borehole that nobody actually wanted. And this approach is still going on in some places. This not only creates dependence on a system that can't support dependency, but it also disempowers people from taking control of their own context and taking action even in the most difficult circumstances. There is some work we can be doing now, even before an emergency occurs, and putting in place processes for working in crises that we can then mobilize once an emergency does occur. Of course, these processes will need to be adapted and fitted to the context and the time and the type of emergency, but they are processes which can be quickly undertaken to assess what is needed by consulting those who know their locality best. Secondly, unless these processes are properly designed and these interventions are properly constructed with the people who will use them, then they won't last beyond the emergency period. People won't take ownership of them, and if they're only built for a short-term emergency, they won't last for the longer periods that we now know conflict and displacements continue for. So our processes and our designs need to be adapted and understood and owned by those who will use them, so that those people know how to maintain and repair them, and so that they are based around local resources which are easily available. We can't continue delivering plastic-backed shelters, bottled water, wells in water-depleted environments, and introducing hungry solid fuel cooking that can cause people to cut down trees to cook or keep warm and further deplete the environments they're living in. We've got to stop trucking in material and trucking out waste. In a climate disaster or a conflict, trucking is difficult and expensive. The money is no longer there to pay for it. The political will no longer exists to maintain it. And the trucking itself, even if it were possible, is resource intensive and damaging to the environment. So these longer, older systems of humanitarian aid no longer work. We'll have to design new systems and processes that work with people, with environment, and with local resources that are easily renewable so that we can replace them. So design and processes, both really important at this stage.
I'm so interested in what you're saying, Juliet, and thank you for this, because like you say, we're at a time when we know disasters are so much more than previously. In the past few decades alone, disasters or recorded disasters have gone up over 4 times what they were only a couple of decades ago. So like you say, we know it's coming. We know disasters are coming, and we know that the current processes and the current systems can't deal with crises as they are. We need something new, exactly like you say. And Roland, welcome. I'm wondering your thoughts on when we talk about regeneration, when we talk about this new work that Juliet mentioned, we often talk about an integrated approach. And I'm wondering what you feel this means in practical terms. When we talk about an ecosystem approach, like looking at the whole, why is this more powerful than simply implementing one technique or one technical solution? What do you think?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And let me start from what Juliet said. Like she said in the beginning, emergencies and crises are no longer short term that we need to find a solution to and move on. They are becoming more long term, which means we need to find solutions that last, solutions that will make sure that the emergencies do not become a bigger problem next time, but that when there is another challenge, it comes and finds a really big wall that will make sure that it doesn't create a lot of challenges. And the system that we are building in emergencies needs to be self-sustainable. And by being self-sustainable, they can't stand alone. They need to be collaborative. They need to be interconnected with other different systems in order to be strong enough for making sure that we don't have a lot of catastrophes to come in different kind of emergencies. For someone who won't understand the system design, think of it as a town or a country where everyone has a different kind of job, but everyone needs everyone. It's like there is a doctor, and then there is a lawyer, and then there is a gardener, and then there is a cook, and then there is a teacher. So everyone needs everyone, but everyone have their own job. That's how the system works. So in a system, you have, let me shift to plants, what I'm more used to. Like when you are designing a permaculture concept, land, you need to kind of bring all of them together, different plants. One can have 3 different roles in the garden. Like today on the settlement, I was telling people that you can plant like a repellent. This repellent plant is going to be maybe tea. It's going to be tea, and it's going to maybe be some kind of medicinal plant. But then it also helps in repelling the insects, right? You don't need to spend money on more repellents. And then the same plant is also going to help work on the soil, because most of them have like strong roots that help on the soil. And this one plant is going to play like 3 different roles in the garden. And if you want the system to be sustainable, you need to have everything interconnected with everything. When you want to create the water design, make sure that it is in relation with the house that you're building on the site. It is in relation with the plants that you're building on the site. And it is in relation with the weather and the kind of site you have, and however you want to build this. And so in emergency systems, we also need to have this approach, because it helps any solution that we put in place to be self-sustainable. Like in a permaculture garden, there is a time that will come and everything is self-sustainable. You don't even need to go there every day, because everything has learned over time to be self-sustainable, to work with each other, and they just grow. They just grow. Yeah. And also nature takes its course. That's what I can say according to why we need to have systems rather than just one single solution to emergencies. Yeah.
All right, this is so powerful. There is that aspect of self-sustenance, just like you've referenced, that everything is interconnected, is interwoven. No matter how small a microorganism, or no matter how small you might think it is, it has a role to play to the bigger food chain ecosystem. So thank you for that. Now, let me find out from both of you. Okay, how can we use design to integrate personal, ecological, and social regeneration? Where do we start to connect those as seemingly separate spheres? You know, we're talking about ecology, we're talking about social integration, we're talking about personal integration. Maybe we'll start with Juliet.
Thanks, Boris. I'm going to echo some of what Rolande has just said, actually, in talking about permaculture, but also in talking about systems and an integrated system. There's strong links between permaculture and regenerative practice, and many of our network, maybe many people listening to the podcast, will be permaculturalists. And they will tell you that its three core simple premises or ethics are earth care, people care, and fair share. And these are the three things I always go back to when I talk about my work and the things that underpin and guide my work. Human beings, I think, as you've really indicated, Boris, are part of nature. We depend on natural resources for our survival. So we need to understand how to live with and among nature in ways that enable it to survive so that we also can survive and to thrive. But desperate people do desperate things, and the trauma and hardship that's created by crisis and conflict can often cause people to only focus on themselves and their immediate survival and forget about their surroundings. People live to care for nature so that nature then cares for them. We need to enable them to recover and to regenerate their own connection with themselves and with nature and then with each other. Humans are social creatures. We survive, I think, as Rolande hinted, through interdependence, not through independence. We're part of a system and we need each other in that system. So without social regeneration, conflict will also reoccur. We know that trauma contributes to protracted conflict with host communities or with others in their communities or family who they may blame for what is happening to them. And when we're experiencing bad things, we always instinctively look for someone to blame. So we see that trauma creates conflict, and unless we address that conflict and look at social regeneration, people will not regenerate and nature will not regenerate. So you see these three spheres are not separate at all. We live as part of a system of interconnected parts, where damaging one can create knock-on damage to other parts of the whole, and survival of the whole depends on those three parts. So we do need to look at them all as part of one thing. What do you think, Rolande?
Yeah, exactly. I was also going to start off with the permaculture ethics because these are like the base of what communities need to be learning to live and design regenerative places. A community like mine, which is filled with people from various backgrounds and coming together to create something together, to start like a whole village together, but with very different background, very different knowledge, and very different experiences. And everyone knows what worked for them before, but we all don't know what will work here. And so it brings us to actually learning not only about the nature, but also to care about each other. It connects the people before we even do anything about nature. That's the problem that connects us. So the people need to first come together. And that's where the social regeneration comes in. The people need to first come together before they work on something together. Because if we are still divided, everyone will do whatever they want, and it will not be a sustainable system on term of the whole village. Because everyone can have their own microclimate, they can have their own microsystem, but when it comes to the whole, it still needs to be integrated. We still need to use all those resources. We still need to all come together and see what works, what doesn't work. And also, to be able to achieve this, like I just said, it needs people coming together and actually discussing. Also, in the same way of applying regeneration to various systems, mental health is also part of the main subjects that people need to talk about when it comes to the work that we are doing, because people face a lot of challenges. And us as the people who are trying to solve the challenge, we need to understand that the people we are solving the challenge with have had experiences and have gone through a lot of challenges, which bring them to actually maybe sometimes refraining from taking risks or refraining from investing a lot of their energy and time in something that maybe they tried before and didn't work. And so we also need to kind of have that compassion towards the people. So you kind of find that everything is connected. You will not succeed in putting on the project alone if the people are not ready to actually take care of it, or if it does not serve them back. Like Boris said in the beginning, someone came and built a borehole but the people didn't need the borehole. They wanted to go to the stream because going to the stream was the only way they could meet with their friends and chat. And you are taking that away from them by bringing the borehole at home. So I feel like in every design, these three things are very, very connected when you think about it. Yeah, you can't achieve one without the other.
I think it's so poignant that you both really touched on the interconnected nature of these three core ethics of permaculture: earth care, people care, and fair share. And I'm thinking as you're both talking how the very act of naming them as separate things maybe even is problematic in itself, because like you said, it's all the care of life, whether that's our internal landscape or our community landscape or the rest of life on this living planet. And I also think it's really important how you both mentioned people's inner landscapes and healing that sometimes people often need before they start engaging with regenerative practice. So thank you so much for talking about this healing and the kind of inner work that we need to do and work with community as we begin to engage with the rest of life in this living planet. So thank you for this. And I'm wondering what you both feel, because in this season, we're looking at how design works in a holistic sense, and each episode will introduce maybe an individual idea or individual project or program, but we really want to encourage our wonderful listeners, those that are listening and people engaging with regeneration more broadly, to think about integrating these specific projects or specific technologies into a more holistic design. So I'd just really love to ask both your advice, Rolande and Juliet. What advice do you have for people to help people keep this whole systems in mind when they're working with these very immediate local needs or challenges like you both described? Juliet, do you want to start us off?
Humanitarians are very driven people often, and there's a common problem in our sector of what we call seeing the world according to our project. This is especially true, and the project or intervention is something that we're really passionate about, so much so that we kind of focus only on the benefits of it without being able to see its impact on other people or on other parts of the natural world. And sometimes these impacts are sufficiently negative to cancel out the benefits, but we're not even looking at them. So I think it's important to try and map the broader system, and that's often a good place to start by visioning how your project or intervention connects with different people, different activities, different materials, or different services. I always find it useful to try and imagine this, but also to draw it with circles or names indicating those different things and arrows between them showing their links, so that I can add to it over time, because you can't always see all these things at once. You sometimes need to walk away and then come back and think, oh yeah, actually, what about that connecting with that? For example, how might new buildings or new boreholes, we've been talking about boreholes, impact the availability of water locally in other places? What are the potential impacts on surrounding land or people who use it or other people who might use these things? And how does the movement to get them impact further on resources or on land? And who are the key users and who are prevented from using it? And will that change? So what are the knock-on effects of these relationships with people, places, or natural phenomena? And you can't imagine all of these things at one time. So it's often useful to find a way to indicate them or draw the different elements and then come back and look at them. But while a systems map is great, it needs boundary, where to end, because ultimately everything's connected with everything. So stay with those things that are within your sphere of awareness or influence. Try to see the links between them and then come back over time to think critically and carefully about the relationships and how one is related to the other. And then look at the points of leverage and what you can do to maximize the benefits and minimize the negative impacts, what you want to do with each of these elements or people. And that often involves talking to people who are going to be impacted by it, talking to people who are going to be using it, doing some research around the impact on land that a borehole can have on lowering the water table, for example. And how the construction of toilets can benefit the environment rather than just taking up space, and how the boreholes interfere with people's natural pattern of their day and what they go to do. So drawing it, visioning it, taking it down, mapping it and then doing a little bit of background research into those relationships, one between the other.
Really valuable steps. I think this is fantastic that you lay this out. And like you say, beginning with the process of mapping, beginning with observation. I mean, observation we often talk about in permaculture as the first place to start, because seeing what's there, seeing what's available. Would you agree, Roland? Anything to add?
Yeah. Starting with design. It's like this quote that people say, failing to plan is planning to fail. Like, when you don't have a design and the end in mind, then you are building you are building without knowing where you're going. It's like you're traveling without destination. And when we are designing designs that are for people, we need to like make sure that we know what we are doing, we know where we are going and why we are doing this. To answer the question, while Juliet talked more on the organization level, I'm going to go lower and talk at community level or personal level on what advice I would give to someone, the whole system in mind while doing the work, because these are the people I'm used to. I go down to the community, I meet people, I meet someone who plants one tree, and they need to know that it's important, whatever they are doing. So on a small scale, what I always tell people is the world is facing a lot of challenges right now. And as we talked in the beginning, it's no longer short term. It's no longer just one flood and it goes. Right now, things are happening over and over and over again. Like recently, last month, we had more than 3-4 floods that happened in Asia alone. And I think there is even more that the media didn't cover that we didn't know about. So the challenges are happening everywhere. They're happening to everyone. They're happening over and over again, which means small communities do not need to wait for someone to come from outside to tell them you need to do this. We need to start doing the little we can. We need to start planting the one tree that we are able to take care of and see it growing. Because if every person on earth right now planted one tree, that's a lot. That's a lot of impact. Now imagine some of them will plant 100, some will plant 10, some will plant a few. And so for every person doing something, I just need them to know whatever efforts you're putting in, it's part of the whole. Like we discussed, it's part of a whole system. So don't be afraid of starting small or doing the smallest that you can. Just do it, because it's changing lives, and you don't breathe the oxygen from the other tree that you planted. Everyone's going to breathe it. And your oxygen you're breathing, you don't know where it's coming from. So just be kind enough and do the small you can. It's still contributing to the whole. And we know there is a lot of books, there is a lot of knowledge out there. Go out and educate yourself, read a book, and learn more about how you can contribute in your day-to-day basis, because there are many small things that any human being can do to help advance the movement, as small as knowing where to put the plastic bottle of the water you drank, as small as composting the residue of the food you ate, as small as planting one tree, as small as telling the neighbor about this, as small as talking to the next person. So I really want to see more and more people doing as small as they can and start growing slowly to having everyone doing an impact and being part of a change in the world. Yeah. Thank you.
Roland, I love that advice. I just think, like you say, start anywhere, just start. And I really think the process of doing can help people grow and learn and change as well. Really powerful.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn out there, and there's a lot to do. We need everyone on board. I even bring on children. By the way, the children are the tree planters, if I can say that. They're the ones who plant as many trees because they have bought the idea. Most of times when we give trees to a school, Sometimes if a tree dies, I will come back home from, I don't know, sir, and I'll find the children sitting there at my home. My tree died. I need another one. Like, yeah, like my friend's tree can't grow big. I need another one, and I need a big one so it can grow fast. And I'm like, do you think I keep trees in my bedroom? We have to like invite them on the next one. So, and yeah, children have planted trees. Everyone's needed abroad. Yeah, many challenges are happening. We also need everyone's contribution. So
So special. I agree. We need everybody, even just to do a little thing. And like you say, even everybody can get involved of any age, and just making it joyful, like you described, is so powerful. I want to say a huge thank you to Juliet and Rolande for sharing your wisdom with us this episode. It's been so wonderful to listen to you and have you here. And I'm wondering, Boris, this is your first Realigns Radio episode. How are you feeling? And do you have any reflections on what we've heard from Rolande and Juliet?
Right. I definitely have a lot of wisdom. I've tapped a lot of wisdom from the two speakers. I will just summarize all I've learned from Juliet into this humanitarian principle of do no harm. When she was talking about integrating the system, the social integration, people and ecology, we want to talk about do no harm. You don't want to go and give solution to people, and at the end of the day, you're causing them more trouble and the environment more trouble. That is not good at all, and it's not sustainable. Sadly, where I am, I look around a lot of practices that are not sustainable at all. The other day, I was visiting a coastal city of Kribi, and there you have a lot of factories coming in. The government is inaugurating these factories here and there. At the end of the day, the people on ground are feeling the impact of these factories because the sea level is rising. It is causing erosion because the mangroves have been cut down and the people are living at the edge. You see, so it's a big trouble, especially in my society. So if this can be integrated, this kind of approach can get into policymakers, then I think we'll be having a sustainable future. And as for Roland, I want to say that I picked up my love for environment from secondary school. So it means kids are very important in the process. You see, I was part of environmental club, and there I got in contact with why we should like nature. That's what inspired me to do geography. And even as a journalist, I am still struggling to use my geographical knowledge. So environmental conservation and protection, it's in my system. And this is what I'm going to be training other kids to pick up this. So just show up, do what you are doing. You don't know who you are impacting. And together we are building a sustainable future. So thank you for the very great insight. It has been simplicity in terms of you breaking down all your terms, and I really love them. Great job.
Thank you so much, Boris. And thanks for being here. And I'm sure we'll have lots more. Maybe we could all check in again together at the end of the season, because I imagine from listening and speaking to our members that we're all going to hear even more fantastic wisdom. But I completely agree with you. Start, get going, and let's see where we get to. Because like you say, Boris, we don't know who you're impacting. Probably a lot of people. Thank you so much. In the next episode, we're going to start to get a bit more technical. So in episode 2, I have the pleasure of speaking to Kostas Latoufis. We'll be exploring small wind turbines, and we're going to see how that specific technology fits into a broader community energy design. And then I think, Juliet, afterwards, you are visiting some fantastic partners in the Philippines and Cameroon, right?
Well, virtually visiting. I would love to be there in person, but we will be together online. Realigns has produced a longer guide on trauma response and a series of short booklets in 2 languages at the moment, but there's 4 more waiting to go up. On what you can do as a first-hand responder to minimize the impacts of trauma in crisis. You can find them on our website and on Practical Action Publishing. They're free. And as I say, they will be downloadable in 5 languages at the moment. They're in English and in Arabic. And some of the people behind the initial work that created this material will be on the podcast. So I hope you can join us.
Can't wait to tune in. Thank you so much. And so, Boris, we'll see you in a couple of episodes' time. And some episodes you'll be hosting, some will be co-hosting, but we can't wait to explore some more topics with you. I think the next episode will be about regenerative urban agriculture with Tarkanet Consum and Konstantinos Tsioumpanos. So can't wait to hear from you, Boris, in a couple of episodes' time.
That's right, James. And I think that's the beauty of integrating with the different system, Listeners get our voices, interwoven nature. Today, James, or tomorrow, Boris, and maybe another day, Boris and James. It's beautiful. And I'm also looking forward to listening to ourselves talk on, it's nice to listen to my voice. I like it. I'm sure.
I think everyone does. This is why you're such a successful radio and podcast host. So thanks for sharing your voice with us, Boris. And if you, our wonderful listeners, are inspired by the stories of design in action, please feel free to subscribe to Realigns Radio, share this episode and the podcast with your friends, and connect with us at Realigns. We are a membership organization. If you are a practitioner or wanting to learn more, you can join us, check out our website. And like Juliet said, we have free materials which you can download from the Realigns website or from Practical Action Publishing. So we can't wait to collaborate with you and also see you soon on the next podcast. A huge thank you again to Boris for joining us as podcast host this season, and to the wonderful Rolande and wonderful Juliet for joining us this episode. Thank you all so much.